Okay, to help students set up their proportions correctly, we first need to understand that the ratios in the proportion must correspond. So what proportions are? That they are two equivalent ratios. We can't stress that enough. So when we're setting up our ratios, we can either use a within ratio or a between. Within is my favorite, so I'm going to use that for this video. And when I say within, I mean we're going to stay within each shape to set up the proportion. So my first triangle here, I'm going to stay within there, and I'm only going to use what's available within this triangle that's given. So I'm going to start with D because I like my variable on top, and then I'm going to put 10 on the bottom. So where did I find D? So I'm going to label that. I found D on the bottom of the triangle, and then I found 10 on the side. So my ratio is within, so I need both of my ratios to be found within each shape individually, and I'm going to have a bottom over the side. So here when I'm setting up my next ratio, because they're equivalent, they have to correspond and match, I need to have bottom and side over here. So now I'm going to look at my bigger triangle. So the bottom of my triangle is 18, and the side of my triangle, because it's the big one, is both of these, is 15. So again, my ratios must correspond, and they do, because I'm using bottom and side, and I chose to go within the same shape. Now another way I could set up my proportion is to use between. So that means if I'm going between the shapes, I'm using both of them. So I could set up my ratio as D over 18. They're both on the bottom. So I know they're both on the bottom. But D is on my smaller, so bottom smaller and bigger. So since these are the same, what I'm really focusing on is that I have the part of the smaller triangle on the top and the part of the bigger triangle on the bottom. They're in the same location. Now that only leaves me with the numbers on the side. So when I use the numbers on the side here, I need to use a smaller side on the top, and then I need to use a side of the bigger on the bottom. So the side of my smaller triangle is 10, side of my bigger triangle is 15. So you can help the students to understand whether first they need to make the decision if they're going to use a within ratio or a between, and then they need to make sure that whatever they label that they correspond. So now when I solve this, I'm going to cross multiply. 15D was 180. Then I divide both sides by 15. 15 divided by 15 is 1. I like to stress to my students that we're just finding 1D. We're not canceling out. That's just 1. So now that we have our 1D all by itself, 180 divided by 15 is 12. So, B is the correct answer for this problem. Again, we want to help our kids set up their own graphic organizer. They're going to first start with writing whether they're going to use a within or between ratio, and then just label the sides to make sure that they still correspond, that they still match before they go to solve their proportion.